moving forward to where we are now, obviously pre-season on the absolute verge of it. I think Liverpool fly out tomorrow at time of recording over to the US. I mean, this obviously was a key time for someone like yourself in your capacity in terms of like the physiotherapy work, but the fitness coaches as well, all that sort of stuff. You mentioned the word preventative a few times. I mean, that must be at the very heart of what you're talking about now in terms of pre-season. Obviously, getting players ready into a point whereby they're ready for the season is crucial, but not picking up injuries at this stage must be massive.
Oh, it's the staff will have. I used to hate preseason. I used to hate it. It was just they will be working immensely hard. They will work long hours. They'll be tired. It's very, very intense. Very intense. And we were talking before a little bit about trying to periodise training load during the course of the season and make sure that we keep players' load relatively constant. It's mad, but then we give them 4 weeks off over the summer where they do have work to do, and obviously some are involved in internationals over the summer as well. But you then bring them back in pre-season where the training load just goes like that, and they're playing games at the end of the second week, and we're all constantly thinking about, okay, you've got to try and you've got a squad of 30 players there, all with a completely individualised injury history, all with completely individualised, preventative programs in terms of their strength work. We've no idea how much they're all going to play at the start from each game. You just never know. Yeah, it's difficult and it's a lot of work and there are a lot of meetings. We're doing it out in Hong Kong, having meetings at like 6:30, 7:15 in the morning to talk through what we were going to do because the players were coming in at 8 a.m. for treatment before we went out to training, and we needed every bit of information we could get from the staff. It is hard. It is hard. You've just got to make sure that the staff communicate and work well and respect each other and trust each other's opinion, because certainly at our football club there's a lot of really good people, a lot of really well qualified people, well experienced people who can do this, but if there's a disconnect there and people don't listen, they're going to have problems. And if the injury rate's soar, it's not a result of a coach, it's not a result of a physio, it's a result of all of them not communicating together and working together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and obviously out in that heat as well, it makes life even more complicated. I wanted to ask you about the international stuff because you touched upon it there. I guess that produces its own challenge, really, about players coming back at different times as well, and you don't know who's who from day to day, and people are wandering in and there at completely different levels than the people who've been there for 2 weeks prior. So again, just another spanner in the works, really.
Yeah, it makes it very, very difficult. Makes it very, very difficult. And I think when it's tournament football, that's that's nigh on impossible. But when it's friendly games and things like that, and you're trying to make sure that your players are rested, and you make the suggestion to the staff at international level, is there any way you could sort of take him off pitch the day after that game instead of do your normal on pitch recovery session? Could we keep him inside? You have to communicate with those guys like virtually constantly, daily, while they're on those tournaments. And it is because you can't control it. It's completely outside of your control. So you wait for the information to get sent to you. Right, there you go. This is what, at the time, so it would have been like Jordan. So there's what Jordan's done in the last 5 days. There's his training load. And we're like, right, okay, if that's what he's done, and he's played those 2 games in the last 5-6 days, we need to take him off pitch for a day or so. Do this. Well, that's our idea. And then we've got to take it to the manager who goes, no, I need him on that day. So that's just the reality of it. And if you've got, and that's the ones that are actually, not all the international teams send you that information as well. So you don't always have access to the information that you really would like to have in order to keep that player available. So it's utter carnage, to be honest, at times. Yeah, it's carnage.
Yeah, trying to make proper assessments on where players are at in terms of their fitness and health when you haven't got any information to go off doesn't sound ideal, especially when you're asking footballers who I'm sure 99.9% of the time, the majority of them would say, oh yeah, I'm perfectly fine, let's do this. It's never quite the case. You mentioned it a moment ago, Andy, I want to pick up on it as well. Peaking at certain times of the season, that has been a bit of a buzz phrase around Liverpool, it feels like, certainly under Jurgen Klopp, because it does feel like visibly, really, in terms of performances and the results, that we did get better at a certain times of the season. Was that something that you were aware of and you spoke about and you looked to do as well during your work?
I think not so much, with the idea to peak at a certain point. I think what we did in terms of the training, we kept it we kept it consistent. So, and what you end up with a core set of players who are able to tolerate that kind of workload and play that many games. What we then have to be a little bit more careful of is like Christmas time. When Christmas comes and that period where it gets really intense, we did we played. I mean, God, I think I still remember it. It was New Year's Eve 2016. I think we played Man City at Anfield. It was a 5 o'clock kickoff. It might have been a 6 o'clock kickoff. So yeah, something like maybe 5 o'clock, whatever it was. Say 5 o'clock kickoff. We played that game, and Genie scored a bullet header.
Yes,
steaming in. I remember that.
Yeah. I'm on,
Yeah. So that was New Year's Eve 2016. We were in New Year's Day to travel to Sunderland to play them for a 3 o'clock kickoff on the 2nd of January. It's utter madness, isn't it? Utter madness how that schedule can be passed, and you can expect. We've all got reasons to whinge. People would moan and say, the smaller clubs would say, well, it's not, you've got a big set of players, you've got a big squad. Well, that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. We try to win the Premier League. We want to win trophies. We don't just want to get by and play a week or 11. So to try and manage that, and I think we played about 4 days before that as well. Before that game, those times are very, very difficult to manage again in terms of little niggles from players, because it's, well, he's feeling this, but we haven't got time to scan him. We haven't got really time to give him any recovery time to see how he goes or to do a clearance session. We've just got to go off what we believe when we assess them and what we know in terms of the information, in terms of the data that they've covered, the distance that they've covered. We've got to go off that. And so, you know what? Well, he's still 25% under what he's normally done over the course of a week. So, no, he's available. He's going to play. He's going to play unless something changes. He's going to be available. And, you do what you can based on the information. And we've just got to make sure sometimes you can get swamped down with an awful lot of variables when you look at those GPS monitors. I think what we did was kept it relatively straightforward and simple and looked at only a few metrics. And it worked for us that season. We didn't really have many in the way of soft tissue injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you touched on it there, really. The football calendar is a wider ranging issue as opposed to just a Liverpool-centric one right now. It's a topic of conversation left, right and centre. There's different tournaments internationally, domestically getting added seemingly by the day. What's your take on it from your professional standpoint? I mean, you hear players coming out and complaining, then the flip side of that is you get people coming out and saying you get paid an absolute fortune, which is by the by, really. But it's getting out of hand, isn't it? It really is.
It seems to be. It certainly seems to be. I think there can be quite a lot of momentum gained about talking about something like this without necessarily having factual, information to look at. But yeah, it does seem to be thick and fast. It seems to be, some of the game times, and they're just really, really odd. When you see the kickoff, sometimes, we travel to London for a 5 o'clock kickoff on a Sunday. Why is that? It's, for the people, I think, like you said before, you said exactly correct. Who cares what the players are in? It's irrelevant. They're still human beings. We're there to put them on a pitch and make sure they're fresh and available. And that should be consistent for every football club and every player. I don't really think, it would appear, wouldn't it, that thought is not really at the forefront of the people's minds who schedule those games, because that's why we always play those games on TV. We play the 12:30 kickoffs. We play the 5 o'clock kickoffs. We play the 8 o'clock kickoffs on a Wednesday night down at Bournemouth away, or Thursday night, whatever it was we did.
Yeah.
It does appear to be getting a little bit like that, yes, but I don't have the hardened information to say, well, this is what we're dealing with now, and that was what it was a couple of years ago. But there seems to be an awful lot of momentum, and the players do notice it, because I think the important thing to consider as well is that it's the intensity of the matches and the intensity of the training. It continually increases every year. It will get faster, even only by a little bit, but it will get faster and faster and faster and faster. And to say, for former players to come out and say, well, I played 2 games in a day when I was at such and such thing. Well, it's not the same. It's not the same. It's a very different game. The amount of distance these guys are covering, it's uncharted. They're totally different. They are pushing themselves every single game. And that's got to be considered. It's got to be considered when we plan these schedules, because some of the game schedules times are bonkers, absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, they certainly are. Liverpool definitely play the half-12s, as you mentioned there. We're well used to them, well versed in that kickoff time. And Virgil van Dijk, of course, came out recently and sort of cited the sheer amount of football that he played. And when someone like that at the very top, very pinnacle of the game, is coming out and saying it's too much, something's not quite right, don't you?